I'm Scott L. Miller. It is, I don't even know. It is Wednesday night. It is Christmas Eve. Feliz Navidad. Everyone, welcome to the live stream. And we have no topic today. We are just here to tell everyone Merry Christmas and to let you guys jump on and say hi or whatever. Great to have passed another awesome year here with everyone, and we've been doing these live streams, and right now I am waiting a little bit for my holiday dinner to be ready, and so I decided to take this time to hang out with you guys for just a tiny bit. And I hope that everyone is doing awesome. And what's everybody up to? I don't know if we have anybody on. Oh, we got a bunch of people on already, actually. And that's fantastic. Glad that you guys are able to jump on. I have my eggnog, although I love rompope, and this is awful. It is truly awful. I don't know how I got such a bad one. I got 2 bottles of this. It's actually a little bit lumpy and bitter, which is not what you expect from rompope. So I'm a little bit disappointed there, but getting my drink on nonetheless. Hey TJ, how's it going? Larry is here. Merry Christmas. Janet is on. You're in class. It is Noche Buena. It is no buena to be working on Noche Buena. And Merry Christmas, Dirty Chivo. Hello, Scott. No days off. No, never a day off. We've not missed a day since something like November 2021, and we're not about to miss a day now. So we are all of 2022, all of 2023, all of 2024, and a few days away from all of 2025, plus some of 2021 without missing a single day. I just noticed that the 4-year anniversary of the vlog was 2 years ago. So I was like, oh, that was longer ago than I expected. So we've been doing this a while, quite a bit. So everybody ready for an exciting night or big meal? We've got a number of people here and doing a Christmas Eve dinner. My family growing up. Thanks. Yes, my nice Christmas shirt. I was out at Dr. Coffee hanging out until they closed. Oh, TJ is cooking dinner, then pumpkin pies. We're doing pumpkin pie here too. Also, apple pie is already ready. Already got that. We're doing lasagna tonight. We are, my family's Swiss. And so it's relatively boring, what we would do for like food and stuff. But my family always celebrated Christmas on Christmas Eve. I talked about this recently. And, Luke just woke up from a food coma. Nice. So Christmas Eve was all just me and my parents. I was a single child. A single child? I was single as a child, but I was an only child. And as an only child and in a very conservative, or very quiet, I should say, reserved, that's the right term, Swiss family, Christmas Eve was, first of all, we didn't have twinkle lights. We had steady lights, and they were not multicolored, they were blue, and like all kinds of little funny things that's like, oh, this is very different than what other people experience. And so we had no big dinner. We would have a nice meal, but it was just a kind of a normal meal. It wasn't like a big thing. And then we would open gifts on Christmas Eve, and it was pretty quiet. It really was. It wasn't this giant event per se. Like it was a big deal. And we really looked forward to it, and we made a big deal out of the presents and the opening and the presentation and all that. But it wasn't like woo, fireworks and just this huge production, I should say. And my wife's family's Italian, and so they make Christmas Eve dinner a really big thing, and they make Christmas is a big production, so kind of everything's a big production. That's sort of the theme. But Christmas Eve dinner is like this very like there's a set list of what you have to eat and the courses and all the cookies and stuff that you have to have. So it's kind of a big thing. So that's what's going on here right now. It is lasagna and steaks and salmon, and because you have to have fish on Christmas, which is weird for me, never something I would have expected. But so it's that and a big pasta thing, and normally a bunch of other things. So that's all going on right now. Oh, that is bad. It's so bad. I mean, considering how much I love Ron Pope, it's really something that I'm like, I'm gonna drink it anyway. Like I'm a trooper, but it is not pleasant. Single child, aka latchkey kid, no dependents. Yeah, it was. I mean, I had a lot of I had a lot of time with my parents. I grew up on a farm, so it was a bit different than a lot, but it was just me. MLW Disclosure says, "Hi Scott, what about the propaganda on banning the Bible? What do you know?" We talked about this the other day, so a couple things to know about it. One is that I mean, actually, this is a great example of exactly what to look for and how this works, right? So we've warned people in the very general sense, pretty often, if you're going to see some propaganda, often it'll be things that if you know anything about the target, Nicaragua in this case, it doesn't make any sense. Like, obviously, that can't be true, right? There's nobody who's really aware of Nicaragua is going to believe that the Bible's been banned. That makes no sense. Given the number of Bibles already in the country, what would that even do? Like, why would anyone create a situation where people were talking about it if there was any credence? So interesting things about it is we always say anytime you get something like this, you get this propaganda that seems completely outrageous. How would anybody believe this? Well, probably because it's either has happened, which it is not, or it could happen and people are afraid of it, or it's in motion to happen back in the United States. So this is the people who actually need to be aware of this being said are the Americans. So what this suggests is that there's some restriction on the Bible very likely coming down in the U.S. And you would normally say that's the most ludicrous thing ever, but we live in times where the government has put out their own Bible recently in the United States. So there's actually some setup for this. There's actually some reason to believe it. And obviously, religious freedom is gone in the United States. There's a lot of control right now. Like, one of the major topics in the U.S. is that the U.S. is saying that Christian values and the Bible, the things that, what the words of Christ, for example, are socialist, are in support of the poor, and so forth. And so they're being openly talked about banning that, about they're openly calling Christian values socialist and terrorism. So the idea that the Bible could be banned in America, while pretty extreme, is certainly on the cards, and there's been a lot of build up to it, and not just talk of banning it in the government, but churches are very much like, they're openly stating that Jesus doesn't have the values of America, and so it's things that no one would have said when I was a kid are being said quite often now. So that's where you really need to be looking for something. The only reason that this propaganda gets anywhere is because the U.S. is in the process of banning books. We know that, and a whole bunch of things behind this. The Bible's been called out as being a terrorist instrument for promoting Christian values. Christians are being called terrorists by the U.S. government and by supporters of the U.S. government. And even in the pulpit, the churches are backing the government. Not always by any stretch. Many are still Bible-based. Many are still Jesus value-based, however you want to word that. But many are taking the opposition and saying that Jesus was the enemy right? Because he supported poor people, because he fed the poor, because he took care of the poor, because he fought against the establishment, because he came to fulfill the law, not to subjugate us to the law, and so forth, right? Things that people don't want to hear. So there's reasons to worry if you're in America, of course, and as so many other things have happened, they claim it's happening in Nicaragua, and then it happens in the U.S. So this is a pattern that we've been warning about for a long time. So this is one we've already warned about, but if you didn't see those videos, be aware Bibles may get banned in the United States, or some curtailment of the freedom of worship materials, very likely to be coming, if it's not already there. As far as Nicaragua is concerned, right? So let's look at the news. First of all, there's only one source of this news, and it is a anti-Catholic publication that claims to be the voice of Catholicism. It is not. It is a religious group who puts out a publication to smear Catholics, to discredit them. So it's a you know, it's you can be anti-Catholic, and that's a fine opinion, but to go out and pretend to be a Catholic and lie about stuff obviously is pretty evil. And so that it's a publication like that that claims to be speaking for Catholics and is not, and it claims, right, there's a whole bunch of it's not considered a journalistic paper. It's just a propaganda source. They only claim, this is how extreme it is, they only claim that a person who works for a bus company, right? So we have to assume if it was anything more than a janitor, they would certainly have talked up whatever position they were to try to give some credibility. They did not. So if this person exists, then it is very likely a janitor. That person claimed that they were being told, they didn't say by whom, that certain things were banned. In that list of things that were banned are things that are protected by presidential order. So we're quite confident that they've not been banned. He also then went on to say that they've been banned for the last 6 months. This isn't a new thing. This is a thing that supposedly Nicaragua's been living with, a ban on a lot of normal things that we use every day for quite some time, and that simply no one has noticed. Importantly, no official statement from the bus company in question has ever come out saying that that was true. No confirmation from Nicaragua has said that that is true. No one riding the buses have had this happen. There's no person that is saying that they were told they couldn't bring things in. None of the other bus companies are being quoted as having workers who believe any of this to be true. And no evidence of this, no published law in the internet, no official website. The official website for the bus company says the opposite, has nothing of the sort. It does have a list of things you can't bring in, right? Fresh fruits and vegetables may have insects in them. You're not allowed to bring that, right? Absolutely, they've got a website that says those things. There's no talk of these things. The people crossing the border are not being questioned about any of these things. There's no information at the border about any of these things. There's just nothing. Right, and so this is such a, when you actually go back and read the article, and you look at any source, all the sources, so we actually covered it here on the show, on the live stream, before any news outlets were repeating it at all. It was just this one thing. You go on Google, there was nothing. There was this one source. Now everyone is quoting them, and if you go back and look at what people quote, and then go back and look at the source, it is so clear that if it's real at all, it's just one guy making a claim in Honduras. And then included with the article is the supposed, but they never state it, proof of what it is. And all the proof is in the photo. And this is, I actually mentioned this, they're so extreme in not caring that this looks real. They know that the people who are going to fall for this are going to fall for it. They don't have to put in any effort. And if they put in any effort, it's wasted. They didn't even bother to AI generate something that said this. They didn't bother to do anything. What they did was someone printed out. Now, if they AI generated this, it would be flabbergasting, right? Because it's so lazy. They printed out a piece of paper, not even with anything official on it, taped it to a wall next to an ad for this bus company and then took a tiny close-up picture where you can just see the corner of the ad. And they pretend that because this piece of paper that they clearly just taped there says something, and because it's in proximity to a billboard or advertisement for a bus, that bus company must be required to do whatever this random piece of paper next to it says. So apparently you could just tape a thing that says free hamburgers on the bus and stick it on any random wall, and anyone with an ad on the wall near it, it's expected to just buy you hamburgers or whatever, right? This makes no sense. It's so unbelievably lazily not even real reporting. Even if all of it was true, none of it would make any difference. It doesn't mean anything. So what's really amazing is that anybody has found a source repeating this. So I would take this as a lesson. We've talked about this before with like the rabies stuff, like the Australian fake press put out all this rabies stuff that made no sense several years ago, which has all been thoroughly whomped on and disproven. But this is so extreme that there's no possibility, there's no wiggle room that any publication that repeated this could claim to have felt it came from a source. There's no way, right? Unless the article that you saw is something saying, look how dumb this is. This thing that is not a media outlet has quoted a person who's not an authority, who's in a country that's unrelated to the question, makes the wild claim. You can get any drunk guy anywhere in the world to make some wild claim, right? You can get some drunk guy in Cambodia having like his 30th vodka for the night to tell you that he swears he once saw Donald Trump in a bathroom stall in Vietnam and that he peeled off his skin and was actually a giant grasshopper being controlled by remote control by an alien ship hovering over top, right? You can get someone to say that. That does not make it journalism, right? That's a drunk guy in a bar being quoted by an asshole. Like, that's it. But so the important thing here is this is such a good extreme situation. This is one that we caught before it went public. We watched it happen. So I can tell you without any doubt, if you find any source that repeated this, any place that claimed it was happening or claimed that there was a source for it happening, a lot of places are like, we don't know if it's happening, but this place claims it is. No, there is no this place claims it is. Anything that repeated, any person that repeated it to you, not in a questioning way, did you hear this? Is this real? No, that's fine. Anyone who's like, did you hear this is happening? Did you know this is happening? Those people, those sources, they're known liars. Never go back to those sources again. They are discredited permanently. Much, unfortunately, like the BBC is, right? The BBC burned their journalistic credentials pretty heavily recently. And you know, being the leftist that I am, I understand that their heart may have been in the right place. But as journalists, there's no such thing as your heart's in the right place when lying, which is one of the reasons why I didn't like working for change.org, right? They presented themselves as this neutral, nonprofit-ish entity, and in reality, they were a very agenda-ridden organization that worked extremely hard to manipulate things, mostly in a way I agreed with, but it didn't change the fact that they were dishonest and acting as if they were a bastion of free speech, basically doing petitions, but they would promote and silence petitions and do a lot to encourage things that they wanted to have happen, which, if those things align with your values, often sound good. But at some point, once you have concepts like freedom of speech or voting or democracy or whatever, those things depend on equality and openness. And once you take those away and start making everything propaganda, even if it's propaganda for, at the moment, something good, doesn't mean it's going to stay that way, and it discredits the thing underneath. And that's what happened to the BBC, unfortunately, is, you know, they did something likely with good intentions, but it was heavily dishonest in a situation where no dishonesty was required. And instead of and it's hard to actually feel that they did it with that intent. It seems like they actually did it for the opposite reason, right? They did it to discredit one of the few remaining, not yet discredited until that point, news outlets, right? Leaving us with very, very few. It was a very important counterpoint to media in the world up until that point. And so it's a difficult situation. The point being, all these places, including MSN, who repeated this unfounded, made up, and clearly not journalistically repeated story, burn their credibility in doing so. And but it's an important. I was talking to someone yesterday, and they said, it's so hard cutting people out of your life over things like this. And I said it wasn't exactly this, but it was similar. And I said, honestly, it's not. We have too many people in our lives, and when there's people who are dishonest or evil or just terrible people, and they make us feel bad, they put us in danger, they seek to harm others or seek to harm us, put our families in danger, whatever. It's not hard to get rid of them. It's super easy to get rid of them. It's freeing. Now I don't have to be around them anymore. Why do we feel it's hard? Why do we feel like there's some overhead to it? Why do we feel like we owe them something we don't? We owe ourselves and our families to cut them out of our lives and be done with that. So yeah, I think embrace opportunities where you can easily identify when something terrible is happening or has happened, or people are being terrible. News outlets are openly dishonest. You know what? You can't trust them. We know we can't trust most media. That's fine. Once there isn't trust in specific media, the concept of media, we know we got to be wary. Once we know a news outlet is dishonest and openly, brazenly dishonest, identify that. They just made your lives easier. You now know nothing from them ever has to be read again. There's no value to it. Even if something they say is sometimes true, doesn't matter. Once you know someone's a liar, you know you have a problem, and that getting information from them will always lead you astray, because you'll never know whether you got real information or not. People can make mistakes. You got to give them room to make mistakes. What I'm saying is, this was so clear that no one could realistically have made a mistake. And if someone did make a mistake, and was actually so foolish as a journalist, so uneducated, so dumb, to think that all this, some guy on a bus, he's not even a guy on a bus. He's just a guy that works for a company that has buses in Honduras, made a claim that in Costa Rica something had about Nicaragua. It was so extremely obvious and clear that there was no story here. And that's all you need to know. And I will tell you, MSN is one of the places that repeated it. What's interesting that came out of that is it occurred to me that growing up, I was told all these stories of the Cold War and how Bibles were banned in the East, and all these people had to smuggle Bibles and such. And I'm like, wait a second. That always seemed weird to me as a kid, for sure. But it really hit me that suddenly I'm like, wait a minute. There's no chance that all those countries were actually banning Bibles. Now I'm able to see these things firsthand. Most of the places you would claim are banning Bibles, I'm like, wait, I've been there. I've seen churches there. I've seen people bring Bibles. There's no way they're banning Bibles. That doesn't make any sense at all. But going back, it's like, when I was a kid, everyone would have just fallen for this. There was no social media to go check. There was no internet to go look it up. There was no easy way to visit these countries and see firsthand. And we just had to take whatever we were fed as information. And it seems so reasonable. And you talk to so many missionaries who are like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. You're like, wow, it must be a thing. Now I realize that was all lies. Those countries weren't banning Bibles. Those people weren't smuggling Bibles. And what's really funny is this morning or yesterday, I think it must have been yesterday, I mentioned this to someone. He's like, yeah, I used to smuggle Bibles. And then we were just having the same conversation, and he goes, you know, now that I think about it, this explains a lot. We didn't actually have to hide the Bibles, and we were able to bring them in all at once. Like, we did it as children in big groups. They had X-ray machines. They all knew we had Bibles. Wait a minute, right? And he like came to the he thought a Bible smuggler as a child, and it suddenly occurred to him that he couldn't have been, and not just. Okay, clearly this story's a lie, obviously, because he lives in Nicaragua. He knows that they're, so he knows the same thing that I know. And he was thinking back to the same Cold War stuff and being like, yeah, but I was one of those people that, and then he's like, I never did anything to actually smuggle them. I was just a Bible mule, not a smuggler. Just someone carrying them because they're heavy and someone else didn't want to carry them, right? Quite literally just having children lift heavy packages for you was all it was. And so it's funny that within maybe 10 hours of me coming to this revelation, I actually spoke to a person who had been involved in this misinformation and was and on their own was like, yep, we didn't really do that. We're eating. All right, guys. Hey, my dinner is ready, my Christmas dinner. So I'm going to read this stuff real quick and get out of here. Are you talking about bringing books to Nicaragua? I've brought suitcases full of books, including a few Bibles to Nicaragua, and they were inspected by the Border Patrol. No issues. Yeah, they'll also inspect cookies, right? But they let you. But good. Thanks, Don Timoteo, for pointing that out. Yeah. I know lots of people who have. It's a regular thing. And the source was like, and it's been a long time. Like, they try to repeat it as if it's new, but if you look at the original source quote, they claim that this is not new. So most everyone has already disproven it and just doesn't realize it. Adam James says, Feliz Navidad, la familia de Mier. Muchas gracias. Feliz Navidad a todo. Ben Lander says, happy holidays to the Nika Man Talking Head. You've been gifting us with a wonderful content. Keep providing. Pass the gift around to all you. Happy fam. I will. Patricia's here. Hola. Feliz Navidad. Edwin says, hello, Scott. Merry Christmas. Let's see if you managed to see the fireworks from Sutiava at midnight. Meanwhile, New York City at Fox Square, the 2025 Christmas showdown is taking place. I've never ever watched a Christmas show in the United States before. Not a thing. All right, fireworks have already started. I can hear them. Dinner has started. I gotta jump. Thank you so much for joining us on a Christmas Eve. Feliz Navidad, everyone.